This is Aaron Wallace for Balance Your Fitness here again with another great exercise and weight loss tip today. And what I talk a little bit about today, some people may not like because everyone loves to go and talk about how we can do cardiovascular exercise as our main way to be able to go and produce results from weight loss. And all we hear online, we watch these massive weight loss shows where they see people going and beating the crap out of themselves on treadmills and running until they're, it's totally breathless and doing all these different long distance cardiovascular programs to be able to go and promote weight loss. What I want to be able to go and do today is not to go and bash people who want to go and do lots of cardiovascular activity. What I want to be able to do today is show, kind of talk to you a little bit more about the physiology of what happens when we try different types of exercise and understand how that relates to being able to lose body fat and change our body. So what I want to do is first off, we want to be able to understand what happens when we go out and start to do cardiovascular exercise or breathless exercise for very long periods of time. Is that when we start to go out and do a lot of cardiovascular exercise, we start to go and release a lot of our hormone cortisol. And when it comes to our hormone cortisol, it's basically our stress hormone that we've talked about in other different videos and YouTube videos before this you guys should check out. So with the cortisol being the stress hormone, cortisol breaks down muscle, demineralizes bone to basically produce short-term energy for short-term survival. It's our short-term survival mechanism. So when we start to go and do long bouts and consistent bouts of cardiovascular activity, so like you're doing, starting to do 30, 60, hour and a half of cardiovascular activity, we're constantly going and breaking down our own supplies of muscle tissue. And this can start to be a problem because when you start to do this, we actually stop our body's ability to go and improve the amount of calories we actually burn at rest. So our muscles are actually basically kind of like our powerhouses, where the more muscle that we have, the more calories that we burn at rest. And there's actually a very good picture, kind of pictorial of this that you guys can that you can look up. Is that if you just look on Google, if you Google sprinter versus marathon runner pictures, and you actually go and see what the difference between a sprinter and the body of a sprinter versus the body of a marathon runner, and kind of you can see the two extremes of what happens hormonally inside of our body when we go and do lots of long-term cardiovascular exercise. If you look at the picture of the marathon runner, they're generally very, 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 very skinny, but they're not necessarily, necessarily very muscular, where you actually can't really see their muscles. You still see a lot of the fat on them, but you really don't see any muscle tone to them. Whereas if you look at the body of the sprinter, you'll basically see someone who has almost no body fat on them, lots of muscular definition, lots of muscle, and basically looks like someone that is very fit and very healthy, whereas sometimes on the marathon runner side it kind of looks almost sickening. And the reason being that is the conditioning program of a marathon runner, or someone who does a lot of cardio, is actually releases lots and lots of cortisol to basically go and try to fuel the amount of exercise that they're doing. So the point of releasing that cortisol is actually to go and break down your own muscle tissue to produce sugar or glucose that you can use to go and fuel the exercise that you're doing. A sprinter doesn't need this, because the sprinter actually just goes and does 8 to 10 seconds of a workout, and then he rests for 5 to 10 minutes before his next sprint. So he doesn't really need to go and break down, release a ton of cortisol to break down his muscle tissue. So this constant promoting of cardiovascular exercise is actually extremely dangerous, and extremely dangerous to to do it long term without understanding what goes on inside of our body. Anytime that you do cardiovascular exercise or any exercise long term, you've got to go and put the fuel back in to be able to go and handle the stress that your body's under. In order to convert cholesterol into cortisol, into your stress hormones, you need adequate amounts of vitamin A, thyroid hormone, sunlight, all these different vitamins, minerals, nutrients. So you're basically trying to go and hit the gas pedal, at 80 or 90 miles an hour without putting gas in it, without changing the oil. So we're going to eventually, the car is going to break down eventually if we keep doing that. So our body is very much the same in that respect. Is if we keep going and hitting the gas constantly without actually putting more fuel in it, because what is always the typical weight loss: cut down on your calories, increase your cardiovascular activity, and you'll lose weight. Well, this basically goes and puts us on a starvation mode and puts us into a massive stress response, which then puts us at more risk for lots of other diseases, decreases our immune system ability to fight infection, and puts us at a lot of risk of being frustrated because of the fact that we don't see the results that we want because our muscle's wasting away, which means we got to burn, we're not burning as many calories at rest. So it's very important that we want to be able to go and pick out the right amount of exercise so that way we don't go and start stressing the crap out of our body, and be able to go and pick the right amount, the right intensity, the right type, the right person, so that way we're not going out and just beating ourselves into a bloody pulp for no purpose or no gain. And you can go and do things that improve, and get your heart pumping and get your heart working while being able to go and improve the amount of muscle that you use. Anytime that you do a proper strength training or body movement program where you're doing whole body movements where you're pushing, pulling, squatting, lunging, twisting, all will go and drive the heart rate up to get a cardiovascular response. You don't need to go and run for 30 or 60 minutes. You can do things that actually go and will actually go and help to go and build your muscle tissue, build your metabolism while getting a little bit of that cardiovascular response as well. So I know that that's probably not something that a lot of runners would hear, and I know if I were to go and talk with people who are massive runners, they'll go and have a little bit different opinion on what I just said. But again, based off of the physiology that I've learned and how the body functions, I wouldn't recommend massive amounts of cardiovascular activity. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to go out and run 30 minutes. Doesn't mean you're going to go out and have massive stress response. No, but what you'll see is the difference when you actually see people who do this long term, constantly over time. So, and the stress of running or the stress of doing long bouts of cardiovascular activity is not any different than the stress that you'll get from, having arguments with your spouse, or being in a job that you don't like, or going and eating crappy chemical-laden food. All these will go and ramp up the stress response and break down our muscle tissue, and break down our organs and have our liver be overloaded. So we want to be able to go and understand that picking out an exercise program is just as important as picking out the food that we eat on a daily basis or how much sleep that we're getting. So not going and overloading our body is just as important as the food that we eat. So a lot of times we can actually get more results out of less exercise, which I know seems counterintuitive, but that's actually how our body functions. And the case of looking at the bodies of Olympic sprinters are very good cases of that. So again, remember when we talk about this is that fat loss doesn't necessarily come from going out and exercising. It's what happens after exercise. It's what happens at rest on a daily basis that actually drives our metabolism up to go and help us lose body fat. So again, if you guys have any questions on anything we went through, don't hesitate to send me a comment on YouTube or Facebook or through our email at info@balanceyourfitness.com. And again, this has been Aaron Wallace, CEO of Balance Your Fitness. asking you to live your life in balance.